Foot and mouth disease outbreak in the country has had many farmers frustrated, and now South Africa has achieved a milestone with the release of the first locally manufactured vaccine in nearly 2 decades. Let's take this further then with the Department of Agriculture's Deputy Director General for Agricultural Production, Biosecurity and Natural Resource Management, Dipepeneneg Serage. Good to have you on the program this evening, sir, and thank you for your time. So this manufacturing of the vaccine, am I right, could not have come at a better time for the agricultural sector?
Good evening to you, and thank you very much for having us. And indeed, we're very happy that finally we've turned the corner. We will now be able to distribute vaccines that are produced locally. But let's also make this point that we've always had vaccines that was developed by the Agricultural Research Council, our entity. But what we did not have was the ability to produce sufficient quantities that we could be able to distribute across the country. So what we've just achieved now is that are now able to produce, albeit at the moment at a smaller scale, and we're increasing that, we're ramping up that. We are now able to produce vaccines per cycle. At the moment, we'll be able to easily have 13,000 doses, and in full swing with this medium scale, we should be able to have close to 96,000 doses per cycle, which is about 2 months.
So am I right in saying then that we're still on track for the 20,000 doses per week, pardon me, that was spoken of in the release from Minister Steenhuisen's department? Is that still on course? And how does that then compare on that point with the needs of the livestock industry within the same sort of cycle, week on week? How much do they need? And does the 20,000 that will be available from March per week be able to meet demand?
From end of February, we will be having more than that. In fact, we estimate the livestock cattle only to be around 14 million in the country. And you think now, obviously, then if you have to vaccinate all of them, you would need 14 million doses. But what we're doing is to try and start at areas that are hardest hit. And for that, we would require a little bit more than that. So our vaccination uptake in the country is about 1 million doses per month. So we'll be able to ramp that up. So from end of February, we will be having around about close to 1 million doses, which will then start distributing. But we are not only relying on the one that is locally produced, because now we are facing this crisis. So we are importing other vaccines to try and augment the capacity. But once the crisis, the outbreak subsides, would then only start relying on the locally produced vaccines.
And indulge us here for a moment, Mr. Serage, on how the rollout or the availability is actually going to work, right? So you've got these vaccines that are being produced in their thousands. How do they go from the production line to reach the cattle herds where they might be needed? And what would be the cost implications for both government and the farmers affected?
So the foot and mouth disease falls in the category of animal diseases that we call state-controlled animal diseases. What this means is that in the event of an outbreak of this controlled animal diseases, the state takes control in terms of funding and ensuring that vaccines are available. We do appreciate, of course, the private sector coming on board to assist, because we do not have open-ended coffers. But in the main, the cost of the distribution, the cost of production, the cost of importation, as we are currently doing, is mainly borne by the state. Now, this is what's going to happen distribution-wise. We have got what we call one of our entities called on-the-board biological products. This is the only institute that is going to be able to handle the vaccines. And let me also pause to reiterate that we require a minimum of biosafety level 3 in order for the facility, in order for that facility to be able to handle vaccines and store them before they're distributed. So at the moment, only the on-the-board, we normally abbreviate to be OBP. Only OBP is the state entity that will be handling the distribution, that will be handling the import. It will arrive, most of it air freight, get stored at OBP, and then the distribution happens through the provincial veterinary services. So all the provinces have got all the 9 provinces have got the fully fledged unit that is responsible for veterinary services. So we liaise with the provinces and they identify the need. So in most cases, they would be identifying areas that already have outbreaks, and then we start with those. So there's a coordination between our department, the Agricultural Research Council, the Owners Board Biological Products, as well as the provincial veterinary services.
And South Africa stopped production of foot and mouth vaccines. This was around 2005, so 21 years ago. Also, at the time, there were issues with aging infrastructure that was not able to meet the industry standards that would have allowed for that sort of work to continue. How is then government making sure that we don't have a repeat of what happened in 2005, especially when you consider how devastating the current foot and mouth outbreak has actually been and the frustration, really, of the farmers affected?
Yes, and especially because we're not going to get rid of foot and mouth disease in the country. This is because the foot and mouth disease comes from buffaloes, and we've got beautiful big 5 in the country. And because of that, we will forever have foot and mouth disease in the country. But what we've been able to do all the time is to ensure that it's kept at the areas there where we are controlling it, and we know that areas around the Kruger follows in the KZN and areas around Kruger National Park. So that's the reality that we are facing. Now, how did we get here? Let's also thank the Minister Didisa during the 6th administration, who then started to, assisting us to get us towards resuming production. So what needs to be mentioned is that most cases people went, because we happen to have the vaccines now being locally produced, people mistake that to be something that happened immediately as a response to this outbreak. That's not true. We've already known that we needed to have the capacity to produce vaccines, but we did not have funding to be able to do that. So what we've done now, coming back to your question, is we've procured the equipment that would allow us to produce the 20,000 doses at a go. And from then on, we will ramp up the same equipment we have ordered. There's one equipment that is on order, which will be able to give us a little bit 4 times the capacity that we have now. And we've got a grand plan, which is a state-of-the-art facility that we've got all the designs, all the civil work and everything else that is done. It requires a bit of funding, additional funding. So in long term, we will have a state-of-the-art facility which will be geared towards producing foot and mouth disease. Like I said, because there's no way we are going to not have foot and mouth disease in the country because of our proximity to the Kruger National Park. And also because we are surrounded with our neighboring countries in Southern Africa. They also would obviously, as we know,
right,
the livestock would cross borders coming to the country. So we will forever need that. So short term, we've got the mid scale. A medium term, we're going to quadruple this. Long term, we've got the state-of-the-art facility that we are busy marshalling funding to conclusion.
Mr. Serage, thank you so much. That was Dipepeneneg Serage, the Agriculture Department's Deputy Director General for Agricultural Production, Biosecurity, as well as Natural Resources Management, speaking to us about a new vaccine, well, a vaccine that's going to be used in the country's fight against foot and mouth disease.